Go on then, Phil, you start.
No, you start.
Oh, you start.
We have this every week.
Any chance you can start? Anyway, look, welcome to Boro Chat. Look, I'm hiding me disappointment with these smiles because I'm just as gutted as you people out there. But look, got the Teesside Rambler with me as per norm, but I've got the legend that is the biggest Boro fan, Mr. Adam Bragg. How are you, mate? All right.
I thought you were going to introduce Super Duper there.
I thought you were going to shake your hand for a second then. Like you've never back, I'm going to introduce in a minute. So I haven't got me thingy. Well, when Phil starts talking, I'll get my phone squared away. But yeah, Super Duper's back. She's got over a little bug here in the baby, so she's back now. So she did remind us that there's no technical issues because she's back. So well, look, guys, got loads to talk about. We could be here for about 4 hours, to be honest. And what is it? Show 11?
Is it 11? Last 2 weeks we've got
11.
Is it 11?
Sure. I introduced as 9 last week when it was 10.
Show 11. How have you got this far?
Don't want that.
This far. West Brom. God, I don't even want to talk about West Brom 4, Boro 2. Phil, you were there. You were there, mate. You were there live. Tell us all about it.
It was a disaster. That's all I'm going to say. It's a disaster, and we'll digress as we.
The score flattens us actually. Hearing it like that 4-2, it didn't feel like a 4-2, did it?
No. Look, we were defensively. It was a disaster. Attacking, we scored 2 goals. I think that puts us on 3 for the season.
We're getting there.
We are. There was some really nice football played. We coped with a lot of their pressure early on, but it was 2-3 defensive blunders that led to goals, and I think by the 3rd goal, I think 90% of the players on the pitch had given up anyway. So it was for the fans that were there, all 2,000 of them. It was more how many more can they add before the final whistle, and luckily for us, it finished 4-2.
Do you know what's funny? You said I was watching it on the old, how one should not watch it. I was watching it there, and you couldn't
On the
get
iPad.
Yeah, on the iPad. Well, you couldn't get the Tees stream, so I was listening to the West Brom commentators, and the West Brom commentators actually said in the first half it was a really equal game. Both teams playing some really nice football, and I think they also said at some point, why are Boro not going for this? They're just trying to hold back on how many goals they're going to concede. So I think you've summed it up really well. It was an absolute disaster. We didn't do too bad in terms of moving forward, but defensive errors, defensive frailties. I mean, that now is how many of our goals have been as a direct result of something we have done.
Well, I was going to say, you're absolutely bang on, right, Adam, because majority of our goals this season, if not going into the back end of last season, have come from our own mistakes. We've gifted them, really. We've helped teams, and teams don't need help in the Championship. Simple as that. All right, we need a bit of help at the minute. But look, there's a couple of positives, small positives. All right, I know we're all.
Don't call it a positive.
We're all down, and but we have to take some small. Laugh. Now, for the 2 games we've watched him, I watched him at home play his debut, and I said it on here last week. We've now got a striker who can tackle. He was quick. He could make his own space. He was chasing shadows at some time. He was winning those corners just by chasing balls down. He started off exactly the same for me. He ran his socks off, to be fair. Just, in my opinion, Yaf's humble opinion, he needs another striker with him, don't we? He needs someone else to play alongside him. He can't do everything. And if you've got 4s on the bench, which is another thing I'm going to come on to in a minute, because for me, from the start of the season, being one of our better players, and new signings are getting in before him.
I'm surprised Fours hasn't been given a chance up front. Especially, we were just chatting off air, and you said, we turned to the bench and Matty Crooks came on. And where did Matty Crooks even play him? Fours is a centre forward. Why is he not given a chance? Why is he not given a chance to go alongside Lath? A bit of that energy and a bit of that running and put the fear of God up some defenders.
Well, look, again, I said this last week, Phil, and obviously you'll back this up, about Matty Crooks. Matty Crooks comes across to me a bit like George Friend. He loves the club, he now loves the area, he's doing a lot outside of the club for the area, which I can only take my hat off to him. But on the pitch now, I look at him and think, what role do you take up? Yeah. Like, we've took a player off and brought Matty Crooks on, the same as we did in the home game, and then 1 minute he'll be like overlapping your winger, and then he'll be sat deep behind Howson, and then he's like right up to. it's as if he has a free roll when he comes on. And for me, if you're chasing a game and I could understand it if Carrick's saying, we've brought Crooks on, so we're going to stick him up, he's quite big, he causes a problem, we're just going to stick him in the box and get the ball to him. But we don't.
Carrick doesn't come across as the type of manager, though, who will bark instructions or give a team a direct instruction on how to play. He wants you to go and express yourself. He wants you to go and play football. So you can't imagine him say to Crooks, get yourself up front, 2 full-backs hit him, let your laugh go up right close to him.
Yeah.
You just can't imagine that from Carrick.
He would love to do that. You look at the players that we had last season, in Ramsey and Archer and Akpom and Giles. They are the type of players that relish the opportunity to just go out and have fun. The players that we've currently got cannot possibly do that.
And that is the difference between Premier League players and Championship players. We've always said this, haven't we, over the years?
We haven't got the quality in this squad for Carrick to just say, go out there and have fun.
No.
The type of players that we've got at the minute, certainly over the last 4 games, Carrick needs to give them individual instruction and hope that they follow that instruction to the final whistle.
Well, I'll ask you guys the question what's on every single Boro fan watching us tonight, Tom. Is our team for the Championship too young?
We've just been chewing the fat. Are we chewing the fat?
Oh, let's put that down for a show.
Put that one. We've been chewing the fat about where are we missing players. And the one thing we all agreed on, we think, is a proper, strong, determined, experienced centre midfielder. Perhaps even another centre back.
Bully.
Probably, a bully. Someone who, when the chips are down and you need them to stand up and pull their sleeves up, goes and gets knacking.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Barry Robson.
Barry Robson.
It's the worst example you could give. There's better ones.
Barry Robson, Adam Clayton, Grant Ledbetter, George Boateng.
Marcy was excellent.
Somebody that's just Howson Howson maybe 5 or 6 years ago could have been that player. He was that player for us up until.
Carrick
but I think
himself.
his legs are just getting slower, and he can't quite. The problem with Howson now is because he is starting to slow down. He can't put them risky tackles in.
No, he can't. Absolutely
where
right.
he used to. There's a chance he'll get the ball. There's a chance he's going to get the man.
A little bit too slow.
It's now more. There's more of a chance you're going to get the man and not the ball, and you're going to end up being banned for a couple of games.
Or injured.
Yeah, and Hackney isn't experienced enough. He's not got that game time under his belt yet to be able to go, well, I'm going to step up and do that. And because he's still the youngest player in the squad.
And he proved it last season, the back end of how many bookings he would get. Little straggly, pointless little bookings.
What worries me is you've got a player in Tommy Smith, and we'll come on to the sending off in a little bit, but we've got a player in Tommy Smith who then comes back from an injury, is an old head in that team, and Howson, and then you look across the board, and in my opinion, they're all kids, and I include Lath in that, because they're all kids, you know. And when you're thinking about bringing experienced players on, he was a developmental player last season, and now is he an experienced player?
And
Come on as such.
Yeah, see, I don't see us having an issue when the squad is too young. I think the issue for me is that it's too inexperienced.
The type of player.
It's the
we need a type of player.
Yeah. Because Dale Fry's he's an old head in this squad now.
But he's still not experienced in the sense that we're talking about.
Does he have a look who's watching?
But he's got a number of years under
Evening,
his belt.
Dale.
Lenihan is an experienced player, but he's only been at the club a year. You look at Force, who's been at the club a year. You look at McGree, who's been at the club a year. They don't have that championship know-how.
No.
I know Force was it Brentford or
Brentford, right?
Didn't get a lot of games, but the games he did get under his belt, their fans loved him. McGree, I think he played, was it Birmingham he played on loan for?
Yeah.
Before he came was. He had a couple of decent games. He had a little bit of exposure to the championship, but he's not had as long in the team like he has at Boro or any other club. So they are all still massively inexperienced. And then you bring in Rodgers and Silvera and Latif and Engel. They don't have any experience in the championship whatsoever. They're coming from a totally different style of football.
Different country.
Which is a lot less physical than what the English Championship is.
We were talking about, I know it's well versed now that we've lost the players that we've lost on loan, But at the start of the season, if you also think about what we'd lost Tommy Smith. We'd lost Dale Fry's edge, hasn't got his edge anymore. Darrell Lenihan doesn't look like the same player. McGree looked off the pace. So all across the team, in every single position, we are detrimented, we are weaker. Much weaker than we were last season.
Let's see what they're saying on the social media. I've just had a read of a few there, Phil, so you're going to be busy.
Well, let me read them, right, first, so actually, we'll go. Tony Dixon's watching, Stuart Gawley's watching, Andy Hamilton's watching, Christine Mack's watching, Naomi Burke's watching, Alan Beckett's watching, Tony Costello, UWCPL, Yorks is watching, Emma Walker's watching, Josh Moore's watching. Tony Costello says, evening boys, all the way from Turkey. That's transatlantic again.
Transatlantic. We're transatlantic, Cozzy, all the way from your holiday destination. Fantastic. Hey, have a kebab for me, Cozzy.
I'll tell you what, Tash has made a fantastic point here.
Tash.
In 6 words.
Yeah. Alan Fletcher goes on that Teesside travel bus every away game, massive Boro fan, home and away. I've seen it.
He says, we looked better with 10 men.
Yeah.
We bloody did.
We did.
We had more control.
Purpose.
With less players,
Yeah.
we actually looked like, for a split second, we wanted it more.
Well, you've got to step up a little bit more.
Sometimes you've got no choice but to go
exactly,
for it.
Exactly.
Andy Hamilton says, Lath is starting for me to look good. Our defence is not looking sharp. Tony Dixon says, Mark, what's happened to Dale Fry? He looks like he's lost his confidence. I agree with Phil.
Are we Tony?
Not good enough at the moment. What's concerning is we can't keep clean sheets. I said this out there. We desperately need a centre-half, central midfielder and a number 10, in my opinion. Another concern is 1 win now in 12. We're going to come on to that shortly.
A quick one on that before we scored up. Tony's absolutely right, because for me, we mentioned it last week, we spoke off air about it as well. I'm a big advocate of Dale Fry. However, since that injury, for me, he plays, it's negative.
He's too reserved.
He gets the ball and Dale's looking for the goalkeeper. Now, if he's getting told to do that by the coaching staff and the manager, well, then who am I to say any different? But from a fan looking with me 2 peepers, it looks very negative. He's over in there, just over the halfway line, for him to get the ball and turn, instead of open up and look around, to turn around and think, well, the goalkeeper's I'll start again. It's too negative.
They've only had 6 months with Carrick, and that risk and reward football that was so good because we could outscore teams. You don't mind taking the risk, you don't mind opening your body up. When we're not playing that well and when we haven't got the movement in front of you, the first thing you're going to do if you're off form is you're going to take that extra touch and you're going to encourage players on you.
Almost looks like a player, like when I see negativity like that, it looks like a player who's playing with a bit of an injury.
It does.
It's easy to go safe first. But anyway, we don't know, do we?
Stuart Gawley says only positive was the sold out away end.
Yeah,
Tony Costello's come back and says, sorry to say, 4 games in and we look lost. It's going to take time, which we don't have. Ibrahim Tanner's been on. I know there's a lot of people unsettled, but our form is really poor and we really lack a cutting edge. Rodgers didn't look interested at time. Lath was a positive, but will that be enough? Stuart Gawley's been back on and says it's around the same age as Bruce's team back when. And Ibrahim Tanner's come back on at the end and he says, I don't blame Howson for any of our poor form, but at 35 your legs do go. We can't rely on him like we used to. And then on top of that, Elliot Baines watching, Nicola Ryan's watching, Marie Yafano, Lisa Joyce. A lot of people watching.
Interesting point about the 86 team though, yeah. I mean, there is a massive difference, a good point by the way, but there is a massive difference between the Championship today and the Championship back in 1986.
So the Ensley League Division 1.
Well, whatever. Barclays League Division 2 it was then, wasn't it? You could go on a run with kids and you could beat teams with a small squad. We're now dealing with what was once the old Barclays League Division 1. That quality of player. Yeah. It's a big difference. Yeah,
I mean, to get back to the game, look, I've got some quotes from Carrick, obviously, after the game, you know. He's on about Howson's first goal. Look, I'm not a biased Boro fan, but anybody who doesn't think that's a push in the back of Howson. You're taught as a kid, 2 hands on the back of a player is a foul ref, isn't it? Yes, it is, mate. You know, it shouldn't have stood. But look, it did. But what Carrick had to say about that, he said it's a big moment, it's hard not to get frustrated, but I thought it was a clear push on Johnny Howson. You're going to suffer things which go against you over a season. I'm not going to sit here and say everything is fantastic, because we haven't won yet, but equally, there's more to it than that. I feel for the boys, there's two sides of it. There's a result which we can't hide from, and there's what happens within that result. We've conceded 4 shots on target and 4 goals, which we can speak about. That worries me. 4 shots on target and concede 4 goals. Is that a bad day at the Otters? again, or is there a problem? One is a foul, one was a mistake, and for a large part I thought there was a lot of good things. We finished the game with 10 men. I was encouraged by things I'm seeing. It's a strange feeling in many ways. Dropping down my notes. And as Tony alluded to, Boro haven't won in 12 games. Now, people will be thinking, well, we haven't played 12 games. What we're saying is, losses and draws, going back to the back end of last season, including the playoffs, Boro haven't won in 12, in up to 12
Our
games.
last league win was against Hull, 3-1.
Yeah.
So, let's
That's our last league win.
let's wind that forward, and we've got to talk about it, whether we upset people or not. Mate, if that was 12 games without a win into this season, there'd be people out there calling for Carrick's head. There'd be papers saying, what have we got to do to get a manager in here? And there'd be people calling for the chairman's head. Now, as all these people know out here, I watch everything. You know, I'm on most Boro, if not all, Boro fanzines on all the different channels. And I also subscribe to the AFL banter page, that speak about all the different clubs, and we have a bit of banter. Now, I've watched it, and Carrick's really had a good week, really. Yes, the result wasn't right. There's the odd few saying, is he experienced enough, and was it just a good bounce? But there's also, and I've got to say, the majority blame the club and the chairman. It may not be directly the chairman, he has a chief executive running the club. However, there is people blaming the chairman. Now, I know for a fact we'll get people on here saying, he saved our club. Look, you know my history on that. I was there, all right, in 86. I know who saved the club, and yes, he was one part of it, all right? But at what time do we say, well, we know he saved the club, but what's happening here? Because as I always say, the three sets of fans at the Boro, I say it all the time, there's old fans like me, possibly you, mate.
Me too, mate, me too.
Okay, what used to stand on the terraces in Ayresome Park, we've got fans who only know the Riverside Stadium, and we've also got fans now who only know maybe the last 3, 4, 5 seasons. Might only know 3 or 4 Boro managers, which worries me, because there's 3 sets of different opinions.
Talk about no winning 12. Do you think Carrick's worried?
Yes, 1,000,000%. Because without a shadow
Was
of doubt...
Wilder worried when he went through the same thing?
Well,
No, because he was
the reason I'm asking...
arrogant back to Boro, isn't he?
The reason I'm asking, right? 5, 6, 7 years ago, this was a club that gave managers chances.
Ryan Robson, Steve McLaren, they're the 2 biggest chances you can think of. Jonathan Woodgate.
Well, you could argue Karanka. Because the day he walked out, the club would have gone, see you later. Nobody does that to Middlesbrough Football Club. They brought him back and he allowed him to come back.
And allowed him to manage the
And then he took us up and you know. But over this, you know, Tony Pulis, Neil Warnock, Jonathan Woodgate, Wilder, the other one that we don't mention.
I know. I
GM.
mentioned his name there, didn't I?
They've not been given a chance. Certainly not. If we were mid-season now, if we were January now, and we're sat here talking about Michael Carrick no winning the league in 12, we're sat on this show now saying the big breaking news is Michael Carrick's been sacked.
The difference, I think, is you saw what Carrick was capable of achieving with 3 or 4 quality, almost Premier League quality players.
Well, they are, exactly.
Yeah.
They've all gone to Premier League clubs.
Yeah, and Tuba's gone to one of the best teams in Europe.
Yeah.
The goalkeeper's going to sign eventually when he's fit. His operation's done for one of the best teams in Germany. You know, there's players who've gone on to better things from us. And if I'm in charge of the club, I can't possibly hang that manager out to dry. Surely, when he turns around, like you said, looks at the bench and looks to Jonathan Woodgate and goes, what have we got, mate? What did you say? Can you get your boots on, Johnny?
Well, look,
that's how thin we are.
You know, a good hour before we come on here, we sit and have a chat next door about what
We should just record that.
Yeah.
We should just set the camera up in there.
Oh, wow. They wouldn't watch this. They'd only watch that. Because
What's the 1 hour pre-show?
There's a lot of obscenities going in that
Don't
one.
talk about setting cameras up.
Oh, God.
But, you know, when you think about that, and I said before we come on air, when Tommy Smith got sent off, Carrick turned straight away to Woodgate. Obviously, he's a defensive man, isn't he? He's come straight to him. Woodgate's body language for me it just said it all, because he sort of shoulders come up. He's like, well, don't know, Michael,
What's just happened there?
I've got a table booked at 9:30 tonight, literally, that's what I'm looking at thinking, like, to the point where he's saying, well, shall I get my boots on? Because we've got nothing else to go on.
Are we seeing the pattern repeat itself? Wilder, slowly but surely, started to get a bit aggressive towards the club. He started having murmurings. He started saying that's a development player. Carrick's the opposite. Carrick's taking it on board and saying it. But
yeah, he's been very PC.
He's been very above board and everything else. He's not rocking the boat. What we don't know, and we talked about this again earlier, is how far bought into the concept is Carrick. Is Carrick fully in? Is he here for 3.5 years, knowing full well this is a long-term thing? I've got these loan players are going to go, and I'm going to have to bring a young squad through. Does he know that's the crack? Or is he in the same position as Wilder, and he's just been very politically correct about it?
And that's the point which me and Phil have made, and probably one of the only points me and Phil ever agree on, is if that's the case, as Boro fans, come out and tell us.
I want to know that if
it doesn't have to be Carrick to say that. The chief executive come out and say that. Say, look, we know things aren't going right, but this is a long-term plan. Carrick's not here today, gone tomorrow. He's here to build a squad. So in 18 months' time, we are going to be hitting him full pelt.
In my head, one day he's going to walk off. Someone's going to take him. If he does a good job with us and builds a nice team, he's going to walk away. And what we want, we hope, is this idea that we're a Southampton or a Brentford or a Swansea.
We can just keep rolling.
That another manager can come in and take the chariot on.
Take the same group of players and
keep moving. The problem is that we don't seem to hear the things we'd like to hear, to just say, calm down, lads. Don't get yourselves wound up in the...
And I often think that, I say that all the time about Boro fans, you can never pull the wool over a Boro fan's eyes.
Well, we're cynics, aren't we? We're naturally cynical people because we've grown up through our lives where you're working for British Steel and suddenly the government comes along and whips a rug from under you. You know what I mean? So we've seen what it's like when people are being quiet. Don't say anything. The pros and the plebs will keep their voices quiet. Just give them a bit of football, give them a bit of
and that's why
we're not daft.
I think, and again, I'm saying Mr. Gibson, we know he's got a chief executive running the club and he's just a figurehead, but someone at the club, the chief executive, Mr. Gibson, whatever, should be coming out and maybe saying, backing Carrick up, because to me, this, and I hate to say it, it's got all the hallmarks of throwing him under the bus.
1,000,000% right. I was just going to say the same thing.
It's got all the hallmarks of throwing Carrick under the bus. He just wasn't good enough.
Some of those words in there's little bits of excuses starting to come in. You don't want to hear that. You want him to be just positive and not be the sounding board.
A couple of weeks ago on a press conference, Michael Carrick said that he's got a couple of experienced Premier League players that are going to come to the club on loan. We're just waiting for the green light.
They haven't come.
Where are these players? But interestingly, Chris Wilder said exactly the same thing. He said exactly the same thing. I've got agreements in place with 3 or 4 Premier League experienced Premier League players. We're just waiting for a couple of things to move, and then we can bring them in. None of them ever came in. That's not a coincidence that they're both saying that. For me, that's the workings of the club saying to Michael, saying to Chris Wilder, there's a couple of players lined up, we need this and this to fall in place, and we can bring them in.
Especially when we know Michael Carrick's one of the most coy people in the world. He never says a word.
Same excuse from two managers.
Things that sound positive.
Yeah. Let's have a look, Phil. Let's have a look what's on the social media.
Stuart Gordon says, if you're good enough, you're old enough. I'm old school in relation to Johnny Howson being 35-year-old. Courtney says, the shame for Gibson now is it's a billionaire's game and not a millionaire's game. Ibrahim Tanner comes on and says, how many times can we blame the manager? The setup isn't right. Too many loans rip the heart out of a team, and every season is like a rebuild. We can restart every season. Stuart Gordon says, haven't recovered from Monk's reign financially.
No, absolutely right. We're still feeling the hangover of that, really.
Michelle Besford's just tuned in.
Good evening, Michelle.
Let's talk a bit more about
Lee Wardle's watching as well. Lee, good evening, mate.
Let's talk a bit more about the game, because there's a couple of things. I was there, I watched it. It was dross, it was horrible. The home fans are non-existent until something happens on the pitch, i.e. they score, and then they think they're the biggest team in the championship, and it was ridiculous. But the first 2 goals we conceded, one of them I think came from, was it a corner? It came from a corner. The ball comes in, 4 defenders, all 4 of our defenders jump up to head one ball, and every single one of them miss it. drops to a lad on the edge of the 6-yard box who takes it down on his chest and wallops it into the back of the net. What was the defensive duty there? It's not kids' football.
Well,
You have all these young lads all running for the same ball.
What I will say to you, Phil, is for the first goal, it was a foul. I'm sorry, I know what you're saying. You're saying about how will we set up and things like that. Don't. Because theoretically it shouldn't have been a goal, and anybody who thought that was a goal,
No, but you also
it's not like the punch from onto Usyk on Saturday where we got 50 saying it's under the belt, 50 saying it's
but
that was a clear foul.
Over the course of the season, that will even itself out, and we will get a call like that in our favour.
But there's there's nothing we can do against it, though, is there?
But if the line rule's not seen it and the ref's not seen it, it's not going to be given.
Take the foul out of the equation, and the positioning is wrong. The goal against Huddersfield. Everything was wrong about it. The own goal from Dale Fry. There's starting to become unnecessary problems that we're causing ourselves. That's what
their second goal. The player picked the ball up on the halfway line, and just ran through us. All of our defenders, Dale Fry as well, backing off him. Dale Fry was on the edge of the 6-yard box, letting him run into the goal. What are you doing? You stop it.
So you
stop it dead.
You tell kids coaching, don't you don't have players running at you because it's the worst thing in the world for a defender.
We used to
for somebody running at you.
Do you remember?
Need stopping dead.
Was it Andrew Johnson played left back?
Yeah.
Boro fans used to go mad because when there was a player running down that wing, he would back off and back off and back off and never put a tackle
in the box.
We're doing that now. This player runs unchallenged from the halfway line, dribbles it down the side, cuts inside towards the goal, and our whole defensive line is just backing off and back. Not one player is trying to block that, and Dale Fry in the end just turns his body, doesn't a half-assed attempt at trying to block a shot. What are you doing?
It's smacking of a real. And then going back to the original point about 12 games, the confidence that we had when we thought we were going to go second, when we were away at Huddersfield and we were 1-0 up and Norwich were beating Sheffield United. Where is that confidence gone? And there was echoes of that in that game at Huddersfield when Paddy backed off and that guy bundled his way. I forget who scored. Those dangers have always been there. Those weak spots have always been there. We
are so inviting, and that's the frustration because Grant Ledbetter, if he wants to put his boots on for a season, he would be stood up there doing all of this and telling him to get that. Tommy Smith did it, and I said this to you guys in there. There was a point before, I think he'd already been booked, but he hadn't been sent off. He was still on the pitch. They came through for an attack, and Tommy Smith jumped up off the floor and went absolutely Chris Akabusi at both Fry and Lenihan.
What does that mean?
Dale Fry and Lenihan, because they were backing off and he's screaming at them, throwing his fists onto the floor, and also none of our players do that.
Maybe he should throw a fist at you.
Add in young kids. I know, I respect the point what's his name said. Sorry, mate, I forgot your name because it's a good point, valid point. If you're young enough, you're old enough, but sometimes they're not old enough. And what we mean by old enough is, if you're old enough, you're good enough. Sometimes you hit the nail on the head. It's the experience.
But in that instance,
it's what we lack, I think.
But when we look at our defensive line, Dale Fry was a club captain and Lenihan was a club captain. That's your two most experienced heads stood side by side on the pitch.
Where have they gone?
Where is that leadership?
Where have they gone?
Where's the attitude change like that? You know,
and that's why it's such a worry. That's why 12 games over a period of time like that is more than just a blip. There's definitely something not quite right somewhere that you would expect like a Grant Ledbetter just to get hold of everyone in training.
Getting back to a point you made about Carrick being obviously very, very calm and says the right things. He has been saying some things over the last couple of weeks where I've thought, what does he mean by that? And things like that. And he was asked about transfers after the game. And this is what he said. Basically, Carrick doesn't feel that the last few days of the transfer window are all or nothing for the Boro. He admits that the unexpected could always happen in the final days of the window after being asked about Martin Piero, which we didn't see. Again, Martin Piero, future, and is he staying? But he doesn't want to be wrapped up talking about outgoings and incomings and outgoings. Well, what else do you want to do? Because you haven't got a game for a week.
It's a transfer window.
And the transfer window finishes. So that's the easy thing to say. Let's talk about that as well when he made a flippant comment in an interview last week where he said, it's not my money.
He did.
You know, he said, it's not my money, you know, basically saying, you know...
Now we're doing with me, mate.
Now we're doing with me, pal.
Yep.
You know, have a word with them upstairs. But he never said that out of his mouth. That worries me a little bit because, like you said, Phil, that's how Wilder started with little comments like that, to the point where, let's be honest, he gave in. Wilder, he gave in.
Well, he put his best stockings on and gave his little bummer shit to Burnley, didn't he?
He absolutely just down tools.
Yeah.
That's what we don't want Carrick to do. And again, that's why I hate this. And look, I know we all have different opinions about Jonathan Woodgate. I thought Woodgate was thrown under the bus,
Yep,
if you
I
want the
agree.
truth. You know, my captain from '86, Tony Mowbray, a legend at the club, was thrown under the bus by this club. Let's not make no bones about that. So if you're going to throw Mowbray and Woodgate, homegrown people who live in the area, one lives in Nunthorpe, one lives in Normanby, you're going to throw Carrick under the bus, who's got no affiliation whatsoever with the club. So that's what worries me from the club's perspective.
Well, there's a pattern, isn't there?
Patterns.
When we went to go and get, when we needed it, a proper manager who had pedigree, experience, a team in Martin O'Neill, we didn't want to touch it because he wanted his own people and his own things and his own way of doing it. We wanted to have our...
Do you know my biggest worry about this managerial situation is we've gone from being a club that gives managers chance and time to a team that in the last 4 years has had 5 managers or whatever, 5 years had 6 managers, whatever it is. There are only so many times managers will look at the club and think, I'd love to be there.
Why did Carrick originally turn the job down, then take 2.5 weeks to decide I want it,
Because he was looking at your backroom staff.
then want people to come in, and then eventually took it and no backroom staff that looked like he chose? Where was Mullickstein or the other fella that we're talking about? So suddenly we
so Rennie Mullickstein
and
and the older guy.
the old fella, I forget his name now. Yeah.
They're both Sir Alex's number
yeah,
twos,
yeah.
weren't they? And they were both, but apparently one of them wanted a lot of more money than
And he didn't want to move.
than Carrick was going to get. Really.
Or somewhere
Yeah,
with his family.
He's got it. I think he's an advisor for the Australian national side.
Yeah, I think that's right, and he couldn't do it.
So
But the point is still valid in that what was Carrick promised to get him to come with the people he couldn't bring? And is that what is happening now? Is what Carrick was promised when he sat around the table with the team and shook hands with them all and said, yeah, I'll go and I'll have this job? Is that what he's now looking at this transfer window going, not my money, mate?
yeah, what changed his mind from saying no to yes?
Yeah, but that's my problem though, because if it happens and we get rid of Carrick, I'm not coming on the show now and saying we are going to get rid of
You've said it now. You've said it.
But we used to all sit on shows like this, right, and say...
There is no shows like this, mate.
But
anyway,
when we were looking for managers, though, Mark, we used to sit here and we used to say, right, we'd have Big Sam at the club. We'd have, you know, Mourinho we'd bring to the club. We'd bring Alex Ferguson to the club if we could. None of them managers are going to be looking at this club now going, oh, I'd love to go there.
Isn't that the...
We're going to end up having managers that we've never heard of, that have never been in the English game, and we're just going to have to go, well, that's all we can attract. We can attract nobodies that have never played the highest level of football, and we're going to settle for second best.
Well, we're going to be even worse than that. Oh my God, this is terrible. We're going to be even worse because
we are going to upbeat it in a bit.
We talked earlier. I said earlier on about how Swansea were and Brentford were, and they bring managers that no one's ever heard of and bring them through, and they become great coaches. We're not even looking like we're able to bring the kind of infrastructure in place to bring in some good young players. We don't even seem to be getting that bit right. So no one will want to come.
No.
Players don't want to come. I still think we've just been talking about having a transfer deadline day show, haven't we? Maybe having a sit down.
Yeah.
What for?
That's
Do you know what I mean? I still hope at 11:59 there's going to be really wrong. Everyone's like, yeah, John Jones.
The janitor's signed a contract. Gone are the days of that, and we all remember it for the older Boro fans. Gone are the days of that ticker tape on Sky Sports going on.
There's been a sign in the other side.
The Duga, Hasselbank,
God.
Yakubu.
I don't think we've ever done a deadline day. Be honest, I don't think we've ever done a deadline day show where we've actually signed somebody on deadline day.
We did one show not long ago, didn't we, Paul, where we had our laptops out, our tablets out, we were going mad at the first 10 minutes, and then by about 15 minutes we just closed.
Yeah. Let us know if you want us to do a transfer deadline.
The lights are off at Rockcliffe. Yeah, we'll still sign someone.
That means nothing.
Yeah, we sent you to Blackpool or Paris, didn't we?
I actually went abroad for a deadline day.
Transatlantic.
Phil, let's see what they say on the socials.
Right, after my little rant, Nicola Ryan says, yes, Phil. Stuart Gawley says, take one for the team. Michelle Besford says, the only one positive was that Latilath got his first goal.
Yeah.
Hopefully the first of many.
Yeah.
I'm being optimistic, and I would love to say that, but then I'm going to be pessimistic and say, where are these goals coming from? Because he can't run the full length of the pitch 3 or 4 times and do everything he needs to do. Stuart Gawley says it'll be a Teesside travel bus now, Yaff.
For...
Not sure.
Don't know where that comes in.
He
But
just says it'll be a Teesside travel bus now.
Well, it will be. It's going to Bolton because I'm sat. My bum will be sat.
And
on
it's
it.
sold out.
On Tuesday night.
Teesside travel, BT Promotions as well. Mark did do that at the beginning.
I didn't. I know. Tony, you'll be like that to me in a minute.
Ibrahim Tanner says Gibson was seen as the best chairman in the country. Then Bowser stepped up. I like that. I like that.
Even Warnock, and you would say every time he got the chance, I'd love to work. Do you know I'd love to work?
That's what I mean.
Middlesbrough. Can you imagine anyone saying that now at the moment?
Well, do you know what? I was saying something about Simon Jordan next door, right? And Simon Jordan is a big advocate of Steve Gibson, or he was. And I don't know what's going on, and you know we're not privy to it. But if anyone who listens to TalkSport like I do Monday to Friday, Jim White and Simon Jordan, he was always talking about Steve Gibson in the Championship. That's the type of chairman you want. Up front, talks his mind. Talks his mind? I can't remember the last time I heard him speak.
We're going to smash the league.
That's the last time, 2017, wasn't it? Look, Stuart Gawley's come back on and said, in relation to throwing him under the bus.
Stu, they're throwing them under a Teesside travel coach. Get up, Stu. Get up.
That's good, that.
Love it. Lewis Clark, let's have a look. Eddie's watching. Throw them under the bus. He said, Lewis Clark, did you go to West Brom?
I did, Lewis, and I saw you at the game. I just chose not to talk to you.
That's what happens to me every time I see him in the match. He can't help me now because he stands at the bottom of the steps when I see him in all these corners. I have to say hello to him.
Honestly, the autographs I'm Simon now is
You're stood there waving and he's just looking at it.
Yeah. I'm like, yeah.
Listen,
I've been to
got to
see
sign
that.
up. Mark, I'm here.
I love you.
Look at these. Look at these. We've got to get a bit
We're
more
trying to keep it
jovial.
upbeat.
We're going to get a bit
We're trying
more
to keep it
upbeat.
upbeat.
Because the Boro are going to win tomorrow night at Bolton, and we're going to go through the next round of the Cup, and our fortunes are going to change. You heard it here first off, Yaff. Anyway, listen, according to the Gazette, by the way, super-duper producer Courtney's been out all day getting us little snippets of it bit.
What have you got? What have you got?
But his recruitment staff have said publicly today that they'd like to attract as many as 3 new players before the transfer deadline day. With another striker, an attacking midfielder to replace Akpom, and a midfielder to compete with Howson. This is what I want to talk about. Doesn't Barlassa compete with Howson?
Can I just, before you ask that question, can we hold hands and pray?
Yeah.
Pray, please.
Is anybody there?
Please.
3 players, so look, that's been put. Look, there must be players going out. We broke on this show that the likes of Coulson, even Isaiah Jones, we know he had a bit of off-field problems last year, but we were of the understanding that they'd been told that basically that they didn't feature in Carrick's plans. But due to circumstance, they found themselves in the first team squad.
And actually
playing.
Jones had a really good game against West Brom.
Yeah.
I've backed him a lot recently. So he did look good.
We've had players told basically that they may not be welcome in the squad, but then you've still, does Paero go into that thing? It's quite evident he doesn't.
It's evident that him and Josh Coburn are going somewhere, aren't
they?
Because
not to bring Josh Coburn on.
How can they go anywhere? How can he even be looking at shipping them out on loan without first having people ready to come in?
Well, with these 3 new signings coming in.
No, that's what I don't get. Like, in the past, we've had a number of players come in, and once those players are signed and through the door, then a couple of players have gone. That's totally changed now, and we seem to be like stripping down each department on the pitch in the hope that once they've gone, anybody will come in and
But what seems like
over.
happened at left back? We let Bowler go.
Knowing
full well Dykesteele was injured as well.
Surely that must have been a mistake
signed.
now. That must have been a mistake because we must have let Bowler go thinking Giles is coming.
The rumour was that Giles had agreed in principle. That's the rumour doing the rounds. But once Luton say, nah.
Premier League football.
Are we sometimes disparaging, aren't we? do we know enough? But are we really that naive as a business to say, oh yeah, gentleman's handshake? I don't know. And it looks like we could be doing it again, letting players go with nothing guaranteed to come in. If Piero and Coburn go, and we lose Latty Laff to an injury or Hayden Hackney to an injury, what are we going to do?
I think it's evident that Latty Laff needs someone to play with. I'd like to see Fours up there with him, mate. I won't like you. Yeah. What Fours is doing, coming off the bench, is ridiculous to me.
Energy,
and again,
determination.
Who am I to tell Michael Carrick what to do? But as a fan looking in, I'm thinking, Fours comes on, he absolutely runs his socks off. I'd have him on from the start, try and get us a foothold in the game. But anyway, bear in mind, Piero, fellas, is in his last year of his contract. So if you're going to get rid of him and try and get a couple of quid for him as a bonus, you need to be doing it now, really, don't you? But you haven't even put him in the shop window, really, has he?
Right, not 6 million quid, aren't we?
6 million quid.
It's interesting what the Gazette said about Piero, though. Have you seen that? Apparently, Carrick just doesn't like him.
Yeah, it's it. Sorry, Super was absolutely right.
It's a good talking point.
Because I missed the...
It baffled us on Saturday.
Piero's in his final year of his contract, but has failed to impress Carrick and didn't travel to West Brom for the game on Saturday. And with Rav van der Berg unable to make the squad, I think he had his hand in or something like that, Carrick had to name 2 goalkeepers on the bench.
No, you did not. No, you did. That's bollocks. No, you did not. Where's Sonny Finch?
Can we quack that out?
Where's Sonny Finch, who's just signed a contract extension?
Bullocks.
Where's all of these kids? Why do we have to name 2 goalkeepers on the bench?
Where's Cartwright, who came on against us?
That's what I mean.
Absolutely bang on.
Cartwright, Sonny Finch.
Jack Hanna, why did we let him?
Yeah, Jack Hanna.
All these young players, by the way, we were chatting to one of the dads downstairs who said hello to us on the way in.
Had to name 2 goalkeepers.
No, I didn't.
Frankie Wills.
Crap. Sorry, but that it annoyed me reading that.
Is that Carrick making a point to the board? Is that Carrick saying,
have we not just
what
said, have we not just said the same thing about Wilder? It felt like that with Wilder. Six in your throat, doesn't it? God.
But that's just the bud. It's stuck in my throat for 30 years, mate.
It did feel like that's what Wilder started to do. Well, look what I've got. Look what I'm working with here.
That's what I mean. And Wilder threw the towel in, didn't he?
Look, what was he gonna, if Smith had gone down injured, what was he going to put Tom Glover at right back?
Yeah.
Why you don't we can see the frustration. You don't have to compound your own misery on the sideline and name 2 players that, let's face it, are not going to get on the pitch.
Well, he was so quick, mate, to name that 17-year-old in the Carabao Cup game against Huddersfield. And, by the way, brought him on.
And praised him.
And said, look, if he's good enough, we're going to use him.
Didn't he also play against Blackpool last season in one of Carrick's best games? Did he come off the bench later on in that game? Wasn't that Sonny
Finch?
No, that was Sonny Finch. That was Sonny Finch. But Cartwright was the one who came on against Huddersfield, wasn't it?
Right, yeah.
Cartwright was one. Now, we've never seen him on a bench since, yet we named 2 goalkeepers.
It was just seeing the team sheet on the bus going to the stadium and seeing 2 goalkeepers, and just why the hell have we got 3 goalkeepers? Like, we have to have one in the squad, but it's very rare a goalkeeper gets injured, and I always think if I was a manager, I wouldn't name a second goalkeeper. I'd be like, Johnny, if he goes down, you're getting the gloves on.
Yeah.
Do you know? I'd put, but if you've there's many outfield players.
Phil Stamp used to do that. Stamp used to be the goalkeeper.
But if you've got a couple of young prospects who aren't going to get much time, when is there a chance for one of them to have a run out? You're 4-2 down away from home, down to 10 men. There was never going to be better opportunity to let one of them have a goal.
But let's face it, that will not happen so long as Hackney's playing. Because he can cope with having one youngster inexperienced on the pitch because the others will support him. But as soon as you put a second youngster on for a full game or to start the game, then balancing that across becomes much more difficult. While Hackney's playing, and don't get me wrong, I think he's been absolutely fantastic, certainly last season. He's not quite there yet. But while Hackney is still so inexperienced, you will very rarely see one of these younger kids come on for longer than 3 minutes at the end of the game.
So is he making
because
a statement?
Because of the balance.
You've got to ask the question, mate. Hey, look, I said to you guys, we could chew the fat. We could do it all. We could speak all night about
eat the custard.
We could do it all night. But hey, look, let's just round up. Boro women again. Boro women, you know, they haven't got off to a good start either. I think they drew the first game of the season, and they got beat 5-3 in the FA Women's. Was it FA Women's National
League Decider.
Yeah. Cup, basically.
Yeah.
And they got beat 5-3, which drops them into the plate. So they have a second chance in the plate, in the FA plate.
And her red card was overturned. I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah,
based on video evidence.
The red card from the first game.
From the first game.
Yeah, went down.
Based on video evidence, the red card was rescinded. So that's great for.
I'll be honest with you, we'd have loved to speak more about it, but we knew we were talking with Super Duper before we started the show, and she said you might not even get onto the Boro Women because we knew what people. Let's round it off, Phil, on the old social media.
Just on Boro Women, they're at home at the Riverside against Stockport.
See, we did all that last week.
Yeah,
we announced all. See,
yeah.
if you were here, not at home.
They are at home. When is it? Do we know the date? It's in September, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's
17th of September.
17th of September. Anyway, it's on the Boro website, www.mfc.co.uk.
Right, Siobhan O'Connor's watching, Stephen Wildmore's watching, Michelle
new one's
Bestford
been watching
says,
it,
Sonny Finch signed a new contract today. Ibrahim Tanner says, do a transfer deadline day special. I can't wait to hear how long the lights are still on for at Rockcliffe.
We'll have to send Paul to Rockcliffe.
They'll be off at 5:30.
Stuart Gawley says that'll be comedy gold, Ibrahim. Paul Clemens says Coburn will go out on loan once a striker is brought in. Apparently all agreed with Plymouth for Coburn loan deal.
Which is strange to me.
I thought it was
Giving it to a rival. Like, I can imagine him going out to League One.
And now that we're struggling, they are a proper rival.
Yeah, I don't understand that at all.
Eddie Fearon says Carrick's interviews don't seem as positive. He's looking a little fed up. Anthony Jad's watching. Nicola Ryan says, Marie, if I know, are you on the bus tomorrow?
She is. She will be there. My mother will be on that coach, hopefully, with a couple of chicken and stuff and sandwiches.
And then, I don't know if this is an insult to you, but this last comment says, Mark, are you ever going to get a guest on that looks better than you?
Wow.
What looks better than me, or that they all...
Sorry, that's better looking than you.
You are the best looking one.
Anthony Jad.
Now, Jad, I've known Jad a long time.
The glasses have come off.
I've known Jad a long time, Jad.
One for a while.
And I know what you're doing there, mate. You're trying to build me confidence up. You can see that I'm down about the Boro, and you're trying to build it up, mate.
I'm wearing my tightest slim fitting jumper to suck it all in.
This lad here, we don't get him on. He's not a bad looking lad, but we don't get him on for his looks. It's the brain inside what talks about the Boro, what we need. So that's the thing. It's like the Reg the Rock. They're like the Reg the Rock. Not only is Reg the sexiest man, but he's 2 years running, by the way. But he's got a brain the size of Lanzarote. That's what it is. Transatlantic. Anyway, on that bombshell,
What's predictions for tomorrow?
What's happening tomorrow?
I'm definitely going. That's the prediction.
I'm in too much despair to even think about Carabao Cup games.
Basically, I'm predicting me and the Reg the Rock will be there. That's about it. Go on, give us a prediction.
I'm struggling. That's why I was hoping.
Does he need to play a really well?
We need a win.
A good strength team to get some confidence, to get a win.
But tomorrow,
What is a good strength team? Good shout.
tomorrow you're going to see Lilac start up front.
Piero.
We'll
see Piero.
Coburn.
You reckon that?
Yeah.
Do you know, sometimes, we've said this for years, me and you, Championship's a numbers game.
Yeah.
And the more you get numbers in the box, and the more you get numbers into the box, in terms of the ball, the more chance you have of scoring a goal. And you might just see him say, in a game that doesn't really mean anything, go and have a goal.
Yeah.
Go on.
Go out and enjoy it.
Yeah.
We're not enjoying the league, go on and enjoy it.
Ibram Tanner's going to be there tomorrow. Ibram, if you see me and the Reg the Rock, come over, give us a shout, we'll have a cup of tea. Matthew Wilson reckons Boro 2, Bolton 0.
I'm going to go 4-3 Boro.
Wow.
I can see us scoring a couple.
I can see you doing a couple.
4-3.
I'm with you, Phil. I think it could be anything. It could be anything.
I'll be honest with you. I'll be honest with you, and you all know the way I am. I'm going to sit on the fence and say Boro 6, Bolton 3. And on that bombshell, see you next week. See ya.